As you can hear there, the Prime Minister is signaling help, or more help, is on the way for more Canadians, including those on the front lines of Canada's long-term care crisis. Here's what you need to know about the federal government's announcement today. If you are an essential worker, you could soon get a raise. The feds want to boost wages for essential workers who are earning less than $2,500 a month, and that includes those working inside long-term care facilities, which, of course, as we've been reporting, have become almost a ground zero for Canada's COVID-19 pandemic. Details are still being worked out with the provinces and territories. You heard the Prime Minister say it will be the subject of a call with the premiers tomorrow. Ottawa is also opening up its emergency response benefit to more struggling Canadians. Before, you had to lose 100% all of your income to be eligible. Now the CERB will be expanded to those earning less than $1,000 a month. It will also be available to those who have run out of employment insurance and to seasonal workers who are expecting a job that no longer exists. Will these changes be enough to fill the gaps? Carla Qualtrough is the Minister of Employment, and she joins us now. Hi, Minister Qualtrough. Good to see you.
Hi there.
I want to start off by asking, and you might have the more up-to-date statistics, the last one I heard, as of Monday, nearly 6 million Canadians had applied for the CERB. How many additional Canadians do you anticipate now will be covered by this program, and what is the additional cost to the Treasury?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, we're not sure exactly the precise number of additional applicants to the CERB because, as you know, we are hoping and really driving businesses towards the wage subsidy, anticipating that workers will go off CERB back onto the payroll of their employers. And so it's a little premature right now for us, but, you know, having expanded the eligibility, we can anticipate tens, if not hundreds of thousands of more people between these two benefits.
Any kind of anticipation? I think I know the recalculation based on the wage subsidy had occurred. I think it was something like $24 billion was the estimated cost to the Treasury. Is there a neighborhood, and I take your point on not knowing, of course, exactly how many people will apply. Is there a neighborhood that you're budgeting for this?
Well, we're looking around that same number because as people switch from one to the other, and of course the wage subsidy is more generous and so therefore more costly for government, but has such additional benefit in terms of workforce or labor force attachment. So I'd prefer not to give a number. I just think we're still premature in that regard.
Will your government have a number eventually to provide? And I ask just because I take it that these programs are needed, but we're trying to get a grasp on how much help the government is injecting.
Oh, absolutely. We'll be able to tell. And I would suspect almost, as the wage subsidy launches in the next, 2 to 3 weeks, we'll be able to understand how many people have shifted over from CERB. Just this week is the launch of the second application period for CERB. So the CERB this week will include reapplicants as well as new applicants. So we're sorting through to make sure we have accurate numbers on. I don't want to say in a couple of weeks that we have so many millions when really we have half of that because it's just the same people applying twice. So we're working on making sure our metrics reflect the actual reality of unique applicants versus reapplicants versus people who are switching over to the wage subsidy.
You talk about the wage subsidy. I think you said the application could be 2 or 3 weeks. Can you be more specific? What is the latest on your government's work on this? When do you anticipate that portal will be opened for applications?
Well, we're as eager as everybody else is to give a more precise deadline. Last Saturday, the finance minister was saying 2 to 4 weeks. I think we're still 2 to 3 weeks away. You know, at the end of this work week, we'll probably be in a better place to advise on where the systems are and how everything is going to interplay. Because, of course, while there's relaxed integrity measures at the front end of these programs to get people money quicker, we're making sure at the end of the day we can have a strong accounting of where the money went and who got what.
The Prime Minister also signaled today that your government will top up wages, as we spelled out there in the introduction to you, for essential workers. Who are you qualifying as an essential worker?
Well, the name of the game in this program is flexibility and collaboration with the provinces and territories. So my understanding as the Prime Minister talks with premiers and as the Deputy Prime Minister talks with her provincial and territorial counterparts is that really it will be in part determined by the needs of the province. Obviously, a ferry worker, for example, might be essential in one province, but not in another. So as much as we have an idea of the types of workers that are essential, you mentioned long-term care facility workers, we know that in different jurisdictions there are different definitions of essential and different needs. So part of the elegance of this program, if you will, is the ability to adapt it to the on-the-ground jurisdictional realities of each province and territory.
Some provinces have already indicated their intent to top up wages for specifically those who work in long-term care facilities. If a province has already done that, will the federal government add to it? How will it work?
Well, again, right now that's being negotiated between the finance minister and the deputy prime minister, and of course the prime minister with premiers. But my understanding is that we'll make provinces whole. So if they've got ahead of us, we will backdate this to March 15th, like we've done other initiatives. So, for Quebec, for example, already offers a $400 a month top up for some essential workers. Quebec may want to keep that, add to it, increase the range of essential workers that they want to help subsidize. And we'll do it as a temporary cost-sharing measure through a direct transfer as quickly as this all can be hashed out with the provinces and territories.
When your government talks about a top-up, you mentioned the $400 figure from Quebec. Is that in the neighborhood of what you're considering?
Well, I would suspect. I mean, I know that, again, this is being discussed. It might be a little more generous than that. What we want to make sure is that people aren't better off on the CERB. And when we've added the capacity for someone to earn $1,000 and as well get CERB for $2,000, people can earn $3,000 a month now and not work full time. And so we want to make sure that the essential workers that are working full time are at least made whole, if not better off, for their efforts, because we need them so desperately right now in our country.
Two specific areas the Prime Minister highlighted today and said he would have more to say on include commercial rent for businesses and students. Both of those areas, I can tell you personally, we are inundated with emails and messages from people who are super concerned, especially here in Ontario, where landlords can actually kick them out tomorrow if they haven't paid their April rent, as well as students who feel like they have totally been missed by what's announced so far. When the Prime Minister says he'll have more to say soon, when is soon?
Well, again, he's speaking with provinces, so premiers tomorrow. So I suspect the commercial rent piece of it will come out soon thereafter. I can tell you, as the minister responsible for advanced ed and for students, we're working really hard to develop a comprehensive suite. Now, we know that, for example, in February, 43% of students, university post-secondary students, had some kind of job. So I'm hoping that a lot of students actually have access to CERB. For those who don't, we're hoping that, through a wage subsidy, an employer will hire them and be able to employ them. And for those in the gaps, we're looking at how we can support through enhanced employment programming, through perhaps direct payment, through some kind of relief through the Canada Student Loans and Grants program. But listen, we know students are on the radar, and we know that they've been patiently waiting, and as we've addressed broader groups of workers, but we haven't forgotten about students at all. And in fact, one of the first things we did was forgive student loan payments for 6 months.
True, but let me just ask you specifically on the case of students who are writing in, and I'm sure you've received a lot of messages about this too, who were expecting that job this summer in order to pay for tuition next year. Why not just allow the CERB to cover them?
Well, the thing about the CERB is that we target it at workers who have lost income to begin with, so that we could give people more. We couldn't make it, quite frankly, for everybody, because it wouldn't have been significant enough to matter in the way we thought the $2,000 to a more targeted group was. Students we're hoping will get opportunities, whether it's through our employment programs or others. We are definitely going to provide support for students. Like I said, the details are still working out, but we haven't forgotten about students.
When it comes to restarting the economy, I'm sure you'll notice the Prime Minister got a lot of questions on that. We just listened to Premier John Horgan as well as Premier Scott Moe. Premier Horgan said it might happen in the not too distant future in BC. Premier Moe is announcing a plan next week. What we heard from the Prime Minister was a bit different. Actually, he sounded almost frustrated today. Everyone's talking about reopening the economy. It's not going to happen yet. What happens if the provincial desire to reopen those specific economies does not match your government's intent? What are you going to do about that?
Well, I think that's why these conversations that are happening between the various levels of government are so important. I know the Prime Minister is very concerned that we can't signal too soon any kind of backing off on our strict public social distancing measures or, border restrictions. And I think he doesn't want to give to Canadians any kind of impression that we can back down on our efforts. And his role kind of leading the country in this, I think, I'm not in his head, but it appears to me as sitting at these tables, he's very concerned that somehow we'll let up on these measures, and we can't afford. We have to be vigilant, and I think that's the message he'll bring to premiers tomorrow. But quite frankly, different jurisdictions are experiencing different realities. I just heard what Premier Moe said about the numbers in Saskatchewan. Those are different than in other places around the country, and we, looking at the entire country, have to make sure everyone is safe.
I think that premiers, the Prime Minister, they're all responding to the feeling among Canadians, this feeling of frustration, of worry about restarting the economy, about their own economic future. We heard the President yesterday talk about withholding funding from the WHO because of what he qualifies as an overdependence on China's data, the information coming out of China. And the bottom line for a lot of people who are critical of that seems to be the response could have been different as a result of sort of more skepticism towards the WHO and towards China. And therefore, the economy could have perhaps been restarted earlier. We could have been considering that earlier. Do you think that the WHO and Canada have been too reliant on data coming out of China? Should we have been more skeptical?
You know, I don't know that level of detail, obviously, but I am confident in as we're briefed as cabinet ministers and as part of the COVID cabinet committee that, you know, the data we're getting from WHO and the advice that is reliant on that data from the Public Health Agency of Canada, we're not wavering on our support of their advice. We think we've been served very well by their advice. Perhaps people will suggest that it was cautious, but it has proven, in my opinion, we're seeing the results of that effort, and we have always supported the WHO. We'll continue to do so. We think it's a really important global gathering of science and data and scientific minds on virus and crises and pandemics across the world. And we can't imagine a country by country approach to this if we didn't have at least a significant coordinating body, quarterbacking this all over the past months. I can't imagine what the world would look like today.
I take your point, certainly, Minister, on the coordination of that. But with respect, I have to challenge you on the idea that everything that the WHO has provided has been with merit. The head of the WHO in January complimented China with the speed at which it has acted, said that the actions were very impressive and beyond words. So is China's commitment to transparency and to supporting other countries. China was the one who said there's no evidence of human-to-human transition. The WHO believed that and passed that information on to Canada. And I'm guessing that politicians acted on that advice when, in fact, we know now that that wasn't true. Again, should your government have been more skeptical of the advice and the data coming to the WHO?
Well, I hear your point on that. And looking back, of course, it's easy to kind of armchair quarterback the game that happened last weekend. But we've listened to what the WHO has advised. We've then, used Canadians' expertise to supplement that information. We've looked around our country and taken a very uniquely Canadian approach to this. We've had the benefit in some cases of our pandemic happening days, weeks, I don't think months, but later than in other countries. And we've seen what they've done. I don't look back and think that we could have done differently. But of course, we'll learn from this. And next time we will have the benefit of these lessons. But based on the information we have at the time, I think we've been well served to listen to the international expertise that's been given to us. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Minister Qualtrough, thank you so much for your time this evening, as always. My pleasure. Take care. Employment Minister Carla Qualtrough. Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.